How's it going? All right, let's get this sucker set up and ready to roll. Not sure what happened here. Usually that doesn't. It's not that. Where is that? Hello. There we go. Hey folks, how's it going? Jack Divine here, office hours. Not sure if anybody's down for one of these. Hey there. So we're going to talk a little bit about Brown-Eyed Women, Grateful Dead. First heard by these old ears off of Europe 72. Played at a much more sedate tempo than ultimately the band was to play it. Only, I don't know, 5 or 6 years later. Seems as though the need to bump up tempos coincides with the return of the song. It's sometimes I really don't see it too much for a little while. It comes back in the 70s, most notably around the Cornell area. You start to hear it start to speed up, right? I don't really care for it too much in the super hyped up tempo. I'm not really that motivated by speed in music. I tend to think of the groove of that first one as being kind of more definitive for me, but that's just my taste. And let's talk a little bit about how it's played. All right, right now I've got it set up for more of a solo sound. So let's get rid of that and get rid of that. Bulk of the tune. Hey, been working through the C-sharp pentatonics, but with a focus on the sweeter tones. Let's just call it what it is. This song is all about playing the melody. The whole thing is out of E major in terms of the every chord in there is to be treated as they're all diatonic, right? So C sharp minor to E major, B major to A, back to C sharp minor, back to E major, back to A major, back to there. That's the jam. All right. Now the tune itself relies heavily on what I think of as like the Garcia whip. This kind of so you got that. Sorry. That energy seems to be the driving energy going on throughout the tune. Now, whether or not you're hearing all that happening, I'm not so sure. It's not going to be in every take, right? But Garcia's not really playing too much in the way of rhythm guitar there. There's nothing terribly challenging, okay? So that's our verse and the solo section as well. All right, chorus is A, B, back to A, C sharp, F sharp, 2, 3, 4. That kind of thing. Nothing too much, all right? We do have this dynamite bridge though, right? After the verse and the chorus, after the guitar solo, there's this nice little bridge where he goes B minor, tumble down shack in Bigfoot County, snowed so hard that the roof caved in. All that's the same, right? Just B minor, A, E, and then C sharp minor. Delilah Jones went to meet her God, and the old man never was the same again. All right, so that's Bigfoot County, snowed so hard that the roof caved in. Daddy made whiskey and he made it well. All right, and basically the whole tune is that. All right, so we do have this one little lick that the piano likes to play that. At the very end, that's kind of a nice little lick. There's some beautiful work by Keith on Europe 72, some octaves that kind of descend down in unpredictable ways. And there's this great, wonderful C note that G note that he plays as well. So you're hearing he does that to return back. It's really kind of a hip choice. Garcia's not doing that. And Bob's part is largely, just little flourishes in another section of the neck. Nowhere near here. He's up in this little... Right, that's what I'm hearing usually. Right, depending on which era. But still clocking with the chords exactly. The real issue is how to solo over the tune, pace yourself, and leave room for there to be one or two passes through a song. I typically think I'll do two, and if I'm feeling like I'm communicating and getting there, I'll take a third. On the initial album, when the song was fresh on 72, it's kept pretty quiet and pretty sedate. So you can think about it in a couple of different places on the neck. I tend to hear it here. That's sort of got a little intro. But as it gets older and faster, right, you get... Definitely is happening down here. The Bean era sounds like it's down here. And frankly, the Europe 72 era might be down there too. I just kind of like that throatier sound that happens up the neck here. All right. I'm a big fan of Hendrix and SRV, and that thumb over energy here seems to really kind of play nice with that C sharp minor sound. All right, but let's talk a little bit about how to solo over it. All right, because the song is strict E major, so we could take a look at any of the chords that are being played and find it all out of E major. So primarily we're looking at E major. All right, so granted we're starting on the minor 6 here. That's just kind of going through the changes and not missing any notes, but we're not really addressing the melody, which is probably the strongest ally you have as a soloist for this tune. So I suggest you work it out in a couple of different octaves, okay? Now we've got a bending option. We've got a sliding option. We've got a sliding and trill option. All right, we've got bending. Our B chord. And then don't forget, when you play over the A chord, you want to reinforce the E flat in the A Lydian chord. All right. You don't want to think that you're playing A major. You're not doing that. You want to make sure you're including that, treating it like this is a Mixolydian chord and this is a Lydian chord. Right, so any note between its third and the fifth should always be played as an E flat or D sharp, right? So as we're coming down through off of that A, you're going to want to be including right, there's that Lydian 4, that raised 4 over the A chord, very important for you to remember. So let's just try playing the melody. so let's think about playing content, right? We're thinking about E major notes stemming off of each of those roots, okay? So C sharp, that shouldn't be too hard. Just C sharp minor, okay? When I climb up and down, am I playing parts of C sharp minor to resolve to E? They're the same. They're the same exact notes. So I'm not really doing any of the work. The context is is more important than the content. If I play over top of the E note, you hear E major. But if I put the C sharp minor, the C sharp chord behind me, you hear me playing C sharp minor. So honestly, there isn't that much thinking. It's mostly trying to find out how to make the guitar pop and tell a little story. And I'm not that great at just whizzing around. I'm actually not. I'm better at doing like the tell the story in little punchy sentences, and I like that kind of approach. There's that D. You don't want that. You want that D sharp. All right. So the truth is, E major scales, when you're running cascades of notes, just think E major, and you should be all right. If you don't happen to land on a downbeat on a chord tone that's simpatico with the chord that's playing behind you, keep playing. You've earned yourself another. You don't have to. You didn't clam yet, but you've got to resolve it shortly thereafter. Okay, so that's the way I look at it. I'm gonna occasionally make run-on sentences based on the fact that I wasn't in a suitable spot within the scale to close out my point. So I might have to run around a little bit or stop someplace and riff for a second just to finish some of the ideas. All right, but there's a couple of little moves that you want to learn how to do. And that's how to get back to that. All right, and this bending up to the, getting to that note, that G sharp is really kind of clutch, okay? So that's what, this move that I'm doing here, I think of that as being inspired. I trace that move to Mike Campbell. To me, that's a Mike Campbellism, right? Kind of sliding up in lieu of a bend, right? Like bending is one thing, but... And I find myself doing that quite a bit in this song, okay? There's something a little bit more targeted about it. There's obviously, it's a little safer of a move than bending, but you don't get to vibrate the string up to pitch. You're already on the pitch, so you're pushing the tension even further. So you have to recognize that, okay? So I'm using lots of this flat five here. Mike Campbell. Okay, there's all opportunity to build up right before that last C sharp. So when we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, So you're going to want to learn those. Right? Now that last little run that I do is something I've been doing since I was a kid. It's halftime triplets, all right? And so this la de do da da do da da do da do do da da do da do do da. So it starts on the tonic of the chord we're playing over, which is that A, which is kind of the trickiest chord in this thing. Well, it is kind of it is a really great song. I always love this tune. Somebody said it actually reminds them of Tom Petty's style of composition. It's not entirely dissimilar to that, other than Tom Petty's songs never seem to harken back to like Dust Bowl era imagery or anything that feels kind of like it's talking about like prohibition times or anything like that. Like Tom Petty's tunes don't send you back in time. There's a certain element of this that seems like it was an old song or something, or at least written about it's written involving imagery and vocabulary that harkens back to the late 1800s to like 1925 or something like that. It kind of feels like a frontiers person's kind of narrative, right? So there's something very American about it, right? And this is a different kind of American than the Tom Petty American, but I see your point. All right. Now, that little move, let's see that if I come down this way, I'm going to be inclined to live in this kind of like Allman Brothers hexatonic. Right, I'm going to be thinking about that area a lot, but this is what I really like is this. Right, I'll show you that in a minute, okay? 1, 2, 3. So a real opportunity for some singing, shooting out notes. Those big vibrato notes that are like on the high E string, those kind of notes that have a little bit of that drama to it, that Sturm und Drang kind of tension, like they relieve a lot of tension, and they also are quite dramatic. They kind of pop out. All right, high E, the sharpening vibrato, the Clapton vibrato, what I call Mamma Mia vibrato, because you're like, this kind of. A lot of vibrato making it happen up there. And then, I don't know, I wouldn't say last, but you know, you've got to learn how to take the solo here, 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 and here. All right, maybe. So different parts of the neck basically try to take the same solo. Just figure out how to do the same-ish ideas and allow for there to be some distinction between the ideas you do down here based on the fact that they're down here. So I tend to focus on this little area here, and then that's about it. I like two, but sometimes I'll get greedy and take a third. All right, and much like there's this little move that I do, stuttering thirds, oh my. I'm not quite sure whether that's because you heard me screw up there when I was climbing in those sixths. Thinking about those are halftime triplets. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. If I went, that would be halftime thirds. All right. This little move that I'm about to show you is super fun. Triplets, yeah, cool. So the idea of taking the same kind of scale from here all the way down to here, the last time we solo through, this is kind of a hit move. So I'm gonna go. So all this kind of same little trill move. 4, then 3, then 4, sorry, then 3, then 3. So you're thinking the A major scale coming down. Sorry, that should have been. We'll see how that factors in. Game by hitting that treacherous D. Now let's talk about other strategies. The inverse strategy of what to play. Obviously, I'm about to harp on that note, D. Don't play D natural in this song. It's a big, stinky turd that you don't want anywhere near your solo. This thing is all about sweetness or bending up into sweetness from sour. classic Garcia move. Fret the note you're into, pull off, and quickly gliss up via a bend. Okay, I want to avoid that D natural at pretty much at all costs. If you do find yourself hitting it, it's probably going to be while you're playing over top of the A chord, and you're thinking, I'm playing over an A major chord, so you go, all right, don't do that. Don't forget that A major chord is in fact an A Lydian scale that you're supposed to play, which is a major scale, don't get me wrong, but just has that sharp 4. All right. If at any point in time you feel the urge to play sequence notes of triplets or quadruplets, right? Those groups of 4, those default to the parent key of E major, okay? If you want to start those scales on the chord tone that you're playing over, like over B, you would go, right? Or over the A. Oh. Right, and then there's always the idea about playing kind of your major and minor pentatonic. Right, having a little bit more muscularity to it than Garcia ever did in this tune. He didn't really do that bluesy tough guy sound there. It does work, but it's just a little too. When I do it, it's okay. It's okay. It sounds cool, but it isn't really on brand. Let's just put it that way. So depending on how muscular you want your version of the song to be, feel free. All right. There's no real tricks here other than taking the necessary pauses. Okay. So I find that, in particular, that B chord kind of sneaks up in some weird places, and also maintaining your modal clarity over that A. So let's just look at, again, think about it in terms of neighborhoods, like where you start, where you finish, and kind of map out a route, like, all right, like if we were looking at El Capitan and we're down here and we're going to climb, we're going to pick which route we're going to take. We're going to figure out what we're going to do before we climb that mountain. Not that this is El Capitan, the El Capitan of Grateful Dead songs, far from it. But it is a great vehicle and a good early set song. Sorry, my cord has gotten all, this thing where it decides to get a wild hair up its ass and coil itself around itself. It's pretty annoying. By the way, I've never seen a wild hair other than a rabbit. All right, here we go. So, if we're doing that, we've got that little chromatic approach tone that's kind of cool. The 9, right? Here's our chance to bring in some flat 5 energy. I guess that's, you can think about that as being, or maybe a flat 3 pulling down to 2 if we're out of E major, depending on how you're viewing it. Sometimes I look at that as that there or here. Hit the dreaded D again. All right, so let's try it. Let's try it in a couple of spots. All right, we'll try it down low. Soon you start to lock into what the hell you're supposed to do, and you can tell when you're getting off there. By the end of that, I started hitting my stride a little bit, and I just felt like, man, there's just nothing like that when the guitar finally falls under your command, right? There's a time where like the distance between me and this thing disappears, and that's what I'm struggling with getting to quickly. I don't know if anybody else out there has the same problem of kind of finding themselves really stuck in and like, yeah, I am at one with the moment and the tool that I'm holding to make it happen. But the way I find that I get there most reliably and with the most amount of the fewest amount of casualties, okay? Because sometimes it's not about doing a great job so much as not totally fucking up on your way to finding that place, right? So like, let's say I had to dick around, but ultimately I find my vibe, all right? Yeah, it helps if you slow down a bit. It's true, but I'm already kind of playing the slower version of the tune. So that's where I'm at. So for me, I'm thinking, all right, if I can find a telling of the tale that I can reliably deliver with little to no thought, that's not a bad thing to have if I'm going to be doing 2 or 3 passes. Kind of take one that I know, all right, and it kind of helps me warm up and kind of feel good, because invariably this song is not played at the end of the night ever. I've never done it anywhere past maybe song 6 or 7 in a set. I don't think I've ever played it in the second set. So, I'm cold during those moments. I mean, comparatively, the whole second set, I'm always just fine. Like, there's no I'm eager to get back on stage. Like, I hate taking big long break. I want to stay in that space, and I'm kind of always kind of pissy about having to get out of there, and then having to re-submerge myself into that. this song is a good early set thing because it only relies on one set of notes, E major. And by now, if I don't know E major like the back of my hand, I've got bigger problems. So it's about settling into the groove and not forgetting, oh, yeah, while the C sharp minor and the E major might be over the same set of notes, but you do have to remember that you're playing over C sharp minor over that first chord, and not just go straight to the E or something like that, which is something that I find myself doing sometimes. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a blanket E major over those first two chords, and then you got to think about hitting a B and getting a. Somebody just said something I didn't get a chance to see it. Good call and response. Gotcha. Fluidity is another concern. Always was a first set tune. Most welcome for sure. Yeah, it's a great tune. I always loved the song. It's just I guess I kind of glaze over it when I think about teaching, except in that it's good for students. Pardon me. I ate a big pasta lunch and now I feel like taking a bear nap. After I take a handful of Tums. All right. If I can manage to listen hard enough to what I'm playing, I feel like I move more from player to listener, which helps me get out of my head about the playing. But it's so rare. I wish it came easier. Okay, so that's exactly the phrase that's exactly the state of mind that I'm talking about. So that's why the melody is really helpful. And if you focus on the melody a little bit, I'm just speaking from my own experience. If I focus on the melody, I bet if you do like I do and focus on the melody, I bet you get better results. So if you take a pause where the melody takes a pause, you can actually kind of breathe a little bit. And then when you oneness, yes, exactly. So finding that ability to kind of connect with what we're after, right? That's tough. Okay, and I mean, obviously, we want to use some of the guitar isms, right, to create a little bit more drama, and I do like this that little area quite a bit. I definitely am a big fan of that. Don't forget while you're playing that A, don't go and then come up to its third and think you're gonna go. That doesn't sound good. You have to go you have to be thinking of or just quit while you're ahead and leave it on the third there, okay? So trying to play it out of here, nice moves. Get that little. That little move right there, I do quite a lot. So let's say I play the melody. Kind of a nice little move there. So if we take that again. starting to loosen up a little bit, starting to try some riskier ideas. That was D major with a flat 7 arpeggio. Down into that little arpeggio shape of an A chord. That worked out pretty nicely. There were some other little things in there. You know, again, if you're aware of your A Lydian scales, this is a great spot to use them over top of that A Lydian chord. You can get that. That's where we could do that. That's a nice little A line. Okay, so major third, whole step, root. Let's try playing that over top of that A chord. Trying out some new things. Some are working, some are not. I don't know why I keep playing this. That is not what I'm after. So that little A Lydian chord, that works out okay. I don't know if it makes too much sense. I mean, it's a little too flashy, to be perfectly honest. My tastes are kind of pedestrian, although I'm prepared to try fancy pants things. Rarely do I actually do anything so outre in a live context. That's what the woodshed down here is really for. 100% of my time spent down here is judgment free. And at the same time, I wouldn't say judgment free, but like I don't judge myself in like you should feel bad about how you play. I never am doing that. I never walk away from playing feeling bad about my playing. I always walk away feeling inspired to do better, and I am constantly evaluating whether or not what I was practicing works. All right, I must say that it's hard work, and at the same time, I don't feel like it's hard work because it's super enjoyable. I love playing the guitar. I do it both for my vocation and for my profession. So it's just like I can't stop. I'm somewhat compulsive about this. I'm sure my wife wishes I was more interested in, laundry or cleaning up the bathroom or whatever. Now I do have a lot of reverb on there, and I have more than my typical amount of delay on. I have some longer quarter note delay, but it doesn't really seem to get in the way because of two things. One, I'm fortunate in that I have this nice Kemper thing, which allows me to get access to the delay and equalize it. Okay, meaning I can I can take the high end all the way down till the delay doesn't really resemble much of anything. It's just kind of a little bump, like almost sounds like that. But then you can open it up until it's just bright enough to be heard when you stop playing or while you're playing. And in addition to that, the Kemper has this lovely parameter called ducking. And ducking is something that I was brought to my attention when I worked in studios back in the late 80s, early 90s. I was an intern at oh my goodness. I shouldn't fidget. So sorry about that, guys. I shouldn't fidget with the cable while I'm telling stories. Anyway, I was an intern at the studio, and I noticed that in every one of their rooms they had this machine called the 2290, and I had heard about that machine because I was an avid guitar player magazine reader, and I remember reading about Steve Lukather had one. I knew that Steve Vai, he was more about the H3000, the Eventide harmonizer, but the other guy who had one was the Edge, and you would see him. There's kind of like this push button kind of little, like, it looked like a telephone, like the kind of thing, or like a 10 keypad, and then a couple of these bright red digital readouts with these touch buttons. And it had a feature on it called ducking that you could press, and it was just like a preset that would basically set a threshold that it was already set for you, but you would press it and it would monitor the input level of the signal that you were sending in. So my guitar, for example, let's say the threshold was arbitrarily here and my guitar is just making it over here. So every time it goes over here, the delay turns itself down, and then as the guitar comes down, it comes up. So it's constantly doing one of these kind of things, like, okay? And so as I'm playing, my delays are staying kind of ducked or tucked back behind the dry signal, keeping it nice and punchy. But then once I stop, you hear it immediately comes jumping up. It is in fact a side-chained compressor for signal to delay. Absolutely. So Justin is right on point. This can be done in patch bays and routing and all kinds of stuff. But back when I was a pup, I had no idea that that's what was taking place. And frankly, just pressing a button felt like sheer magic. It was also kind of weird because, if you play quietly, your sound goes. It's a little wetter when you play quietly. But it is a lovely thing to be able to add, because as you stop, then it kind of creates this pillow behind you. But you retain plenty of punch. All right. Now the reverb is not set like that, but reverb has another parameter that you can control, and that's called pre-delay. So that means imagining putting a side chain where the send from the signal goes through a delay that's set to 100% wet. That means it's only the delayed signal going to the reverb, and the delay time is some fraction, a quarter note, an eighth note, a 16th note, all the way out to maybe even a whole bit of, like a big chunk, like a quarter note of the song, and the reverb will go like afterwards. And you'll hear this a lot on 70s records in particular. You hear it on like some Joe Walsh records. I think it's Rocky Mountain Way, that this kind of snare drum hits, and then you hear it kind of happens afterwards. And it's a great sound. It's a great way of creating the ambience behind the sound, but keeping the original attack of the sound intact. So the attack is intact, and the reverb is way back there. All right, so it keeps things nice and clear. So I'm utilizing that too on my reverbs, especially when I break out big ones. Here's one. Right, I actually happen to have one on that setting. Watch. Okay, now this is for when or if I'm doing anything really spacey. So if I was doing something that was Okay, so it does come in handy. It happens to live on my setting for brown-eyed women. I did not remember that, by the way, when I started talking about that. It just dawned on me that it happens to be there. All right, my normal sound right here is this. One quick delay. All right, that little slap back. And then I've added in this little joint just to get a little bit wetter. Appreciate all the pointers, especially the Lydian heads up on the A chord. Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. It's my pleasure to share with you the where the piles of shit are that I've stepped in over the years. Because the truth is, I don't like thinking while I play. I don't like it, but it has proved helpful from time to time. I don't like doing it. I like to just kind of sing and hope like that. When I'm doing these, I try to let go. When I work, I try to work. And when I perform, I try to actually, I'm struggling to get into the flow state. That's the hardest thing for me to do sometimes, is to actually stop realizing that what I'm doing and being kind of outside of that moment. And I don't know how many of you are currently gigging musicians, and I don't know how important that is to you, but I will say that there is a certain state of grace that happens at that point for me, where I feel like I've turned off the guidance system in my little X-wing fighter, and I'm zooming through the channel of the gig, and I can't miss. It seems it's an interesting sensation. It's kind of reminds me of when you get on a roll, when you're playing pool or billiards, or some sort of kinetic thing where you just hit your stride. All right, and you wanna it's like you're in Vegas on a heater. You don't want to break it. Okay, so there's no more real lesson here, I suppose, in that just practice your E major scales in all kinds of different ways, right? I mean, if I just come starting down here, it's going to sound pretty good. Just couple of good moments in there, and then I whiffed at the end, and that's when I decided to call it a day. All right, folks, look, that's an hour. Justin, thank you for stopping by and explaining what I was trying to say in the actual proper technical parlance. I didn't really want to get into talking about side chains and stuff like that, but that's exactly what it is. So any of you with digital audio workstation experience, that's what the ducking thing is hooking a compressor up between your input signal and the send, basically, to whatever effect you're doing. All right. Now the Kemper does not allow anything other than how instantaneously and how far back it pushes. It's just one feature, like how much ducking do you want. It doesn't allow any real control over like the ratio or how long it stays before it recovers or any. It doesn't have any of that depth or granularity of parameters, and I'm fine with that. Trust me, I like when things just do what you want them to do without having to like manhandle it into shape. But every now and again, having some technical expertise really does pay off. And I'm woefully inadequate in most things technical. Um, I'm better at like hands-on, like no, no, it still needs to be filed and shaved. How does it fit? No, okay, more of that. Like I'm more patient than talented, I think. More persistent than gifted, and I think that should be actually kind of a hope to anybody who looks at my playing or whatever it is that I'm doing for you here and thinking, how could I ever do that? I'll tell you how. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of persistence. But a friend of mine who I used to play music with, who has gone on to become quite successful, told me, all you have to be is too stupid to quit. Hey, how's it going, Greg? Happy Tuesday to you. Today's my day off. So I met with my insurance adjuster for all that bullshit that was happening back there. We should be underway shortly, but unfortunately, I'm going to be not homeless, but displaced for quite a few months while they rebuild the top floor of our house, which is going to be quite kind of a drag because it's a lovely renovation that we have up there. So I'm kind of sad to see it get boogered. Who knows? They'll never be able to rebuild it the right way. You know, there's just too much. But who knows? So that'll mean probably in the next couple of months when the construction starts, I won't be living here anymore, and I won't be able to. I'll be practicing like headphones and probably not doing live streams or anything like that. So get it while the getting's good. Not that there isn't an abundance of shit in the hopper here for you. So you gotta learn your A Lydian fast on that one. I'll see you guys later, okay? Take care, everybody. And if you're students and you're watching, I'll see you at your next lessons. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.